r/ask Reddit. What dirty little secret does your profession hide that the consumer should know? Valet driver here. Don't leave your drugs in the car. A kid took a pound out of a customer's car a few years back and the dude came back flipping out screaming at the manager. When the manager finally asked what was stolen and he told him weed, my manager just said, oh, well you can file a police report then. Goddamn. That's movie level shit. I am a welder for a company that builds roller coasters. Every single welder's inspected and x-rayed for any defect. So I guess this doesn't apply, but just so everyone can feel a little bit safer I figured I'd let you internet people know. Holy shit, a positive one. Stay strong little post. The post will stay strong. It's been inspected and x-rayed. Every driver of a truck has nodded off at one time or another, making them an 80,000 pound death missile. I worked receiving at Costco for 5 years. I can attest that these people are sleep deprived as duck. They always look like zombies when I buzz them in. That, and apparently Swift Transportation doesn't offer their employees dental. Swift would let my dogs drive if they had thumbs and could reach the pedals. I get paid to tell you what your employees have been telling you. I interviewed with a consulting company that step 1 of their consulting process was to literally go in and ask the employees which things needed changing. They'd make the changes in different stores and find out which changes worked and which didn't and which had interactions. A certain telephone company with a blue globe logo doesn't actually have a billing department. You are always routed to sales. The job is not to fix your billing problem. It's to upsell you. If you have a legit billing problem, you will be transferred because the rep doesn't want to deal with anyone that isn't a sale. Every time you're transferred, it's actually to the same department, just a different sales rep. Billing managers are really just sales managers. It will be a minute while the account loads. Already loaded. So what do you like to watch on TV? Really running their address for coming sales pitch. Good times. It's not uncommon for assistants and apprentices to make the art of really famous, well-known, expensive artists. The artist might be very involved in the process or barely involved. They can have studios with dozens of assistants churning out all of their work, and then just sign their name to it. And I'm not just talking about sculptures or art installations where assistants might be doing the grunt work. Even paintings could be barely touched by the actual artist. This is true in other mediums. 2. Jim Davis has not drawn a Garfield cartoon in years. He has a staff that does the cartoons and he just approves them. Also, some pop fiction authors, the ones who put out a book or two every year, often have staff write their books. They will just write an outline and notes for each chapter. James Patterson doesn't even hide this shit anymore. The books are appallingly terrible, but people keep buying them because they say his name on them. I just don't get it. The Jim Davis one doesn't really bother me because I work with kids in a library and I'll be damned if every kid between the ages of 8-12 doesn't go through a massive Garfield phase where they go insane if there are no more books they haven't read. Those kids are rabid and I love their excitement for a new book. If it means there is a Garfield ghostwriter who is keeping these kids coming back, then so be it. Teacher here. I hide your secrets. If your kids know it, I know it. Children are tactless and impulsive and they tell me all about your reproductive habits, financial difficulties, domestic problems, and Tinder dates. I know so much about moms and dads that I wish I could erase from my brain forever, but I will never tell. You're welcome. I self-inject medication once a week for arthritis and I'm 75% certain my kids' teachers have heard about mommy using needles without context. When I was 6, I told my teacher, my dad drinks and drives all the time. My teacher had to have a conference with my parents and my dad was put in the awkward position of explaining how I confused drinking 7-Eleven big gulps in the car with alcohol. I used to work for a major package delivery service unloading semi-trailers. The flat screen TV you ordered for Christmas was under a gun safe and a lift kit for a truck. Same past job. If your box looks a little bit crushed, it was probably one of 20 that were wedged together in a chute somewhere along the belt line that took all of the strength someone could summon to unwedge. If you're going to ship something, make sure it can survive a fall from chest height. Sewer inspector. I can tell exactly who what house is dumping oil and grease down their drains. It's usually the churches and businesses that get nastygrams and fines, but we need to shame the house people too. My wife and her college roommates would flush grease down the sink with cold water. They thought the reason you don't pour grease down the sink was because it would burn the pipes. So they cooled it down real good first. She is beautiful though. Doctor here. I'll see a patient Monday morning in the hospital, work all night and then Tuesday morning in the hospital, and I won't have slept in the 24 hours in between. And this is totally normal and accepted practice in medicine. When I was in college, I asked my primary care physician if he thought I should become a doctor. He told me, if you want to work like a gentleman, become a lawyer. Doctors work like animals for many years. I'm now a lawyer and I have zero regrets. I have no idea how you guys do it. In the legal profession, the most difficult a-hole in the entire case is often your own client. Legacy programmer here. All of the debt from your houses, and your parents' and landlords' houses, and increasingly all of your credit card, consumer and student loan debt are all being processed on 24-hour cycles on a system backbone that was written well before I was born. And I'm old, in Reddit terms. I work in mortgage servicing and tinker with the spiderwebs that hold up the economy as we know it. It's pretty complex, because everything runs on spit and promises and equal parts sunshine and darkness. We find ways to squeeze tiny bits of performance improvements out of an impossible system so that we can immediately put more load on it. If you want to guarantee yourself years of work in an environment you'll probably hate, learn to code in COBOL. Most of the people in my debt are within a decade of retirement, if they live that long. Our company pays college kids to learn on the job now because there are no new COBOL programmers. I hate it. It's a chore to get up and go in every day. It's my dream job and I'm lucky to have it. Also legacy programmer here. Financial firm. Our backbone code is written in Fortran. I never imagined I'd graduate and write Fortran code for a living. Although, I know COBOL as well. I find it really tedious. I'm glad that we don't use COBOL at my job. Bless you for taking one for the team there. If you're sitting at a blackjack table and aren't sure what play to make, ask the dealer. No, seriously, we're trained to know the official blackjack strategy guide and are allowed to give you that information. Considered common knowledge. If the dealer doesn't know it offhand, their supervisor should have a copy of it and will help you out. I can't count to 21 without taking off my shoes. Most of the time, the dealers tell me what to do. It's pretty effective. It takes me longer to lose my money on blackjack than on slots. Bro, anyone who's ever been at a vehicle assembly plant knows that most cars have a quality of about 80% of their specifications and they're sold that way to everyone. So that explains why my seats aren't bolted down. Ha, today I learned. Teacher, it's that time of year to make class placements for next year. Every year there are 2 or 3 teachers in the school elementary who are so awful. We cry over which students we have to sacrifice to them and hope they are strong enough to survive a year with Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. As a nurse, we do this too. And we conveniently walk by those patients' rooms to make sure they're okay. This explains a lot. My favorite nurse used to always come by on her lunch break when I was stepped down from ICU. And I hated my new nurse BC. It would take her 2.5 hours to give me scheduled meds. I own a bar. We get rich while a lot of people drown their sorrows in alcohol. Serious. That really depresses me somehow. Same ideology as a drug dealer to addicts. Many of the books you read, especially romance, aren't written by the person whose name is on the cover. Most romance books are ghostwritten and bought by someone else, often a man, I've found, and published under a female's name with a fake bio. How do I know this? I'm a ghostwriter. I wanted to name my son Rafe. We were in a store and my wife said Rafe is the kind of name they use in romance novels. She picked up the nearest book and the main character was called Rafe. My now 8-year-old son is not called Rafe. Thanks for that. A lot of people think military is synonymous with discipline and top-tier job training. I've seen things that would make a McDonald's worker think that their job is pretty high class. Infantry here got out 2 years ago. Unless deployed, we're just glorified janitors, trained to do nothing but kill, but had more time in service sweeping, mopping, picking weeds out of the motor pool than actually even attempting to do what I was trained for. Hell, at least by the end I was able to tell other privates to go sweep the motor pool while it was raining. That people in the kitchen and in factories also go to work when they feel ill, and you most likely have eaten something someone sneezed on. Because there is a line between feeling so sick you can't get out of bed and coughing and sneezing once in a while. Yep, food service is brutal about taking sick days. Like you better be half in your deathbed to call out. And considering how virulent some pathogens are, like norovirus, winter vomiting bug, one sick worker could infect half a town. My boyfriend works in a kitchen. We got sick from something a co-worker had and were shaking, getting hot flashes and chills, violent diarrhea and vomiting, and the other manager wanted him to come in to do a catering order for 500 people. Took 3 hours on the phone arguing and a doctor's note before his co-worker dropped it, but he was passive aggressive for weeks. Very few institutions get computer security right. The fact that nothing catastrophic has happened yet is nearly a miracle. The gym you bought your membership from probably printed your credit card details onto a piece of paper. The membership consultants then punch it into a machine and throw it into a dumpster out the back. They also saved your email to the mailing list regardless of whether you check no. And it was not in fact the last 10 memberships on offer. They are limitless because 90% of members never go, and you probably won't either. Cheers for the donation. After working in the travel industry, I can tell you that hotel room rates are often not fixed prices. If guests come to the front desk and ask the price, we generally start at the high end. Most people accept this as fact and pay up. However, if a customer is hesitant or threatens to walk out, we can sometimes drop the price to keep them there. Often there is a bottom line price set by the owners. We can't go any lower than that or we lose money. Wash your fruit. We find spiders hanging out in grapes and berries all the time. Your friendly neighborhood grocery store employee. Software development. You will always be pressed for more time and money. Your product will almost always launch with major bugs and issues. You will spend most of your final moments before go live fixing as many of the visible issues as you can, and subsequent updates actually getting the product to where you envisioned it as you were building. Bakery owner here. If you order a custom cake, we will charge you a fair price depending on decoration, size, flavorings, etc. No matter what type event it's for. We don't upcharge you for weddings. As much as Reddit likes to think, we will, however, upsell you. You want white cake? That's fine. But this Genoese sponge is much tastier and costs 0.75 more per serving. You want a lace wrapped bottom? What if I hand piped lace all over it? It would be much more beautiful and cost about $100 to $500 more, depending on cake size. You get the idea. Basically, if you have a firm cake budget, make sure you let the bakery know when you start your tasting. Take their suggestions if they fit within your budget. They won't try to upsell you too much unless they're a-holes, and it'll save a lot of disappointment. People love to think they're getting charged out the ass because it's a wedding, but really they usually have had no prior experience with the things they're being charged for and therefore don't know how much it should cost in the first place. Most people aren't hiring a catering service for 200 people on a regular basis, or like $150 for a wedding dress hem. A lot of people will think that's gouging, but when your hem requires carefully removing delicate lace and restitching by hand, yep, that shit ain't cheap. I don't care if the place next to your office hems pants for $8. This ain't duckin' pants. If your baby is in full-time care, 40 plus hours a week, the odds are that we know about their milestones, rolling, crawling, walking, talking, etc. before you do. It's just because the majority of their waking time is spent with us. We don't tell you because working hard to provide for your kid doesn't make you a bad parent, and we don't want you to feel like you're missing out. Most everything at Applebee's besides meats are microwaved. It is against Walmart's company policy for hourly employees to call 911 in the event of an emergency. Rather, they must notify the nearest manager, which could take anywhere from minutes to weeks depending on where the manager is, what they are doing, whether the hourly employee has a walkie, etc. Employees can be, and have been, fired for calling 911 to report an in-store emergency. I'm an advertising photographer. Pretty much anything you buy based off the work of my industry won't be as nice as it looks in the ads. We put a lot of work into making something that's worth $5 look like it's worth $50. Pretty much anything food based. A real fast food burger looks much sadder than advertised. Accounting. That the appearance of everything is fine is more important than is everything actually fine. Financial statement sign-offs by accountants are becoming more like rubber stamps. Accountants are blessing financial statements that haven't been properly vetted because of cost constraints engulfing the industry. It's only a matter of time before the next Enron accounting scandal. Not really my profession anymore, or a profession at all, but I used to work the production line at the Swiss Colony Bakery. For those who aren't familiar, it's basically mail order gourmet food. Quality control in that factory was nil. 75% of the workers had little to no training. When promoters came through to do a video, they had to bring in extra people to make it look busy. They also had to scrape a couple foot tall mounds of chocolate off the floor, sweep up the dead bugs, and very carefully not pan up to show where the ceiling had been on fire. Anything you order from them has a good chance of being damaged, tainted, or modified. If you enter a sweepstakes or contest, some sites will use your friends list to decide how popular/cool you are, and it ups your possibility to win. That explains why I never win, comma. Barely anyone in the state of Georgia gets an autopsy. If you wanted to kill someone over the age of 40, all you would really need to do is make sure that they had some kind of previous medical history and the body was found outside of a metropolitan area. The coroners here are only required to have a high school diploma. Some states are worse, most better. I work in video games. Our job is to make our game as addictive as possible so that we can make the most money out of microtransactions. Think mobile phone games. A lot of our game design is by marketing telling us what people will most likely buy in the game by watching data. Sure, it starts free to play, but to keep you playing and paying we mine data to make it more sticky. After a while I felt like I was working for a drug dealer and quit recommending our games to people I knew. Sure, people have fun playing the games we make, but I don't want to hear later about how much money you or your kids wasted on it. In a call center, we're more likely to waive admin fees if you're nice to us and we like you. Also, we're more likely to charge you more if you're rude or patronizing. Home construction. It is so bad. Amazing what people will pay $500,000 for. Total rubbish. You won't believe the number of foundation failures or how many roof trusses have termites pre-installed, and for God's sake never look under the carpet. So much pre-recorded music and lip syncing. Live music isn't what it used to be. Baggage handler. If you check a skateboard by just slapping a sticker on it, it will get ridden. I worked in a lab where targets took over all health and safety. I worked with asbestos without a mask regularly, and the samples we crushed were constantly contaminated to a ridiculous level because none of the equipment was ever cleaned. No time. Too many targets to hit was the reason I left. I hate being forced to do a bad job. Therapist in a skilled nursing facility here. Some places will hang on to residents well past when they're ready to go home to suck up all the Medicare money they can. Others send them home too early in hopes of getting a good rating from the insurance payers, and therefore more referrals. I'm lucky enough to work in a place that doesn't seem to do this. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.